The Howling Pit. Some holes don't go down, they go through. The wind had been dead still when the sound started. Not a breeze, not a branch breaking, not an animal. It began as a hum, so low it was almost below hearing, felt more in the chest than the ears. Then came the whispers, faint, layered, like voices trapped behind a wall. And then, at some impossible depth, a howl. Long, hollow, endless. That was the moment the five of them realized something was wrong with the forest. It was the third night of their camping trip. One of those spontaneous, we're tired of our phones kinds of weekends. They'd driven out to Bear Claw National Reserve, deep in the northeastern woods. Isolated, unplugged, miles from any signal or road. It seemed like the perfect spot. It wasn't on any map. 3 days earlier, the hike had been uneventful. The forest was dense but gorgeous, thick with ferns, massive pine trunks, and soft moss underfoot. Birds flitted in and out of view. Somewhere in the distance, a stream whispered past stones. So peaceful I could barf, Greg said. I miss car horns and chain-smoking homeless men. Be quiet and absorb the natural beauty, Ash replied. Maybe it'll fix your personality. Greg grinned. You say that like sarcasm isn't my only defense mechanism. The group chuckled. Even Harper, who usually stayed quiet. She had the haunted look of someone always keeping one ear tuned for things no one else could hear. Owen, the de facto leader and part-time wilderness guide, turned and held up a hand. Half a mile more, I marked a flat spot by a ridge. Good elevation, no risk of flooding. Can we flood the sarcasm instead? Ash muttered. Greg bowed. My tongue is a public service. The fifth member, Danny, rolled her eyes but smiled. You two bicker like a married couple. They reached the ridge by dusk. It was perfect, clear skies, flat ground, and a stunning overlook of the valley. They pitched tents, built a fire, cooked canned chili, and traded ghost stories that didn't quite hit. When the moon rose, full and bright, the forest shimmered, and something below them moved. It wasn't much, just a faint rustle, too deep for any animal, too short for a breeze. Greg tilted his head. You guys hear that? Probably a deer, Owen said, adding another log to the fire. But Greg didn't look convinced. By morning, something had changed. Where there had once been a grove of small trees, there was now a pit. No debris, no soil piled up. Just a raw, yawning wound in the earth. 10 feet wide, perfectly round, and utterly black inside. The edges were clean, unnaturally smooth. They all stood at the edge, squinting in. How the hell? Owen began. No way this was here yesterday, Harper said. Her voice was tight. Ash picked up a stick and tossed it in. No sound. She blinked. Did it hit bottom? Greg clapped his hands. Great. Spontaneous hellhole. I love when reality forgets how physics works. Danny moved closer. It looks unnatural, like a machine cut. Owen pulled out a headlamp and turned it on. Let's see how far it goes. He aimed it down. The beam vanished 5 feet in. Okay, he said slowly. Either that's the deepest pit on Earth or... It's not a pit, Harper interrupted. It's a mouth. They all turned to her. She wasn't joking. I heard something last night, she continued, just before bed. A voice, like it was underneath me, like the ground was breathing. Are you sure you didn't hit the wine pouch too hard? Greg asked. She ignored him. Ash squatted at the rim and leaned slightly forward. It smells weird, not like dirt. Greg sniffed. Yeah, smells like wet iron, blood and batteries. Danny shivered. Owen stood. We mark it and report it on the way back. It's probably a sinkhole. Dangerous, but explainable. But no one moved. They just stared at it. That night, the howling began. It started just after midnight. They'd been asleep, scattered in their tents, when the ground vibrated. Subtle. Subsonic. Then came the voice. Not one voice. Hundreds. It was like hearing a crowd whispering prayers in reverse, layered over something much deeper. Then came the howl. Long, broken, inhuman. Harper screamed. Owen bolted out of his tent, flashlight sweeping. Danny was sitting upright, pale as chalk. It's coming up. Ash stumbled out, clutching a knife. I saw something, in the trees. Greg was last, groggy and barefoot. Guys, something's wrong with the sky. They looked up. The stars were gone. No clouds, just black. The moon was still there, but it had a shadow. Something circular passed in front of it, eclipsing it for just a moment. And then the shadows moved. Things began crawling out of the forest. Not animals, not people. Shapes. Just shapes. Tall, thin, twisting like smoke. Featureless. But they stopped at the edge of the clearing, as if bound by the firelight. The howling rose again, so loud it made their bones feel hollow. Harper pointed to the pit. Something was climbing out. No limbs, no eyes, just a surface. Crawling upward. Owen grabbed her hand and yanked her away. Back, get away from it. They huddled near the fire, weapons drawn, if knives and sticks counted as weapons. The pit hissed. Then, silence. The figures in the woods disappeared like vapor, and the stars returned. By dawn, they were too scared to leave. Owen insisted they pack up and hike out immediately, but every trail they'd marked had changed. The compass spun. The GPS refused to turn on. Even the sun felt like it wasn't in the right place. They argued. Greg insisted the pit was the center of it. We don't go around it. We go in. That's where the answers are. Harper almost slapped him. You want to climb into the thing that howled at us all night? Greg's smile was thin. We're already in the trap. Might as well look for the exit. Ash stared at the pit. We should cover it. With what? Danny snapped. Prayers. Greg leaned forward again, peering into the hole. It's weird. I think I can hear it. Talking. Harper covered her ears. Shut up, shut up. Don't listen to it. But Greg didn't move. He reached into his backpack, pulled out a rope, and stood. I'm going in. Seth tried to stop him. Greg laughed, wild and giddy. Come on, worst case I scream and die. Best case I come back as a prophet. He tied the rope to a nearby tree and began his descent. Ash held the rope steady. Greg dropped into the pit, disappearing after 5 feet. They waited. 1 minute, 2. Then, Greg's voice echoed from the pit. "Guys?" They all leaned in, but the voice didn't sound right. It was warped, stretched out like it was bouncing off wet stone or coming through layers of water. "I think I'm inside something," he said, his voice distant, muffled, yet close enough to feel. "It's not a tunnel. It's flesh, it's warm, breathing." Harper's eyes widened. "Pull him up, now." Ash gripped the rope tighter. "Greg, start climbing." A pause. Then, "It's alive," Greg whispered. "I think it's sleeping." Static crackled from below, though there was no radio, no device. Just a hiss, wet and grainy, like an old tape degrading in real time. Then came one final line, barely audible but unmistakably Greg. "It knows you're watching." The rope jerked, not tugged, snapped. Ash screamed and dropped it as it writhed like a living thing, slithering through her fingers before going limp. Seth dove to grab the end, but it was too late. It slid into the pit, swallowed whole. Silence fell like a blanket. No sound from below. No voice, no Greg. No one slept that night. No one spoke. They just sat around the fire, listening to the pit breathe. When dawn came, Greg's rope was back, but it was dry and cut. No one touched the rope. It sat there like a snake waiting to strike, coiled too perfectly, gleaming too clean. No trace of dirt, no fray, just the clean, surgical end that hadn't been there the night before. Harper was the first to break the silence. "That's not the same rope," she said. "It can't be." Ash backed away from it, hugging herself. I held it in my hands. It was covered in dirt, sap. It had his stupid carabiner clip. "It was cut," Danny added, her voice trembling. "Something down there cut it." Owen stared at the pit, unmoving. His eyes were glazed, bloodshot. The veins around his pupils were spiderwebbing outward like roots under skin. "Greg's not coming back," he muttered. "But that thing wants us to look again. That's why it gave us the rope." "No," Harper said. "It left a piece of him behind." Ash blinked. "What do you mean?" Harper knelt and pointed to the coils. The rope wasn't just clean. It was too clean. The end that had been cut had seared edges, like the fibers had been melted together with something impossibly hot. But worse, embedded in the braid, just barely visible, was a sliver of something. White. Ash squinted. "Is that a tooth?" Harper whispered. By late morning, Owen began unpacking gear. "We're not leaving," he said. Danny stared at him. "What?" "I said we're not leaving. Not until we know what's at the bottom." "We lost Greg," Ash shouted. "We watched him vanish. That pit ate him." Owen turned slowly. "You saw what it did, yes. But that means it responds. It's alive. And living things can be understood, navigated, maybe even controlled." "You sound insane," Harper said flatly. "No," Owen said. I sound like someone who's seen something beyond explanation and wants answers. Aren't you tired of pretending the world makes sense? Danny stepped between them. This is grief, not logic. You're not thinking straight. Owen ignored her and pulled out a second rope. Leave if you want, he muttered. I'm going in. Ash shook her head and backed away. Hell no. You saw what happened. Harper grabbed the rope and cut it with Greg's old hunting knife. No one goes in, she snapped. No more explorers, no more bodies. Owen stared at the cut rope like she'd blasphemed. Then the ground shuddered. They all staggered as a low rumble vibrated through the trees. The fire pit collapsed inward, swallowing itself. The pit had grown. That afternoon, the forest around them changed. The trees looked the same, but the shadows were wrong, stretched vertically like pillars in some impossible cathedral. The air felt dense, heavy, the light filtered and yellowed like old film. Ash wandered from the clearing, needing to pee, needing a break, needing to feel anything other than the pounding in her chest. She didn't go far, maybe 50 yards. But when she turned to return, the trees behind her were gone. There was no clearing, just forest and fog. Ash? She called. Guys? No answer. She spun around, tried retracing her steps. Nothing. Just a low humming in the ground. Then crackling in her ears. Greg's voice. Hey, Ash. You found it too. She froze. No, she whispered. No. Greg's voice came from inside her head, not through air, not even telepathic. It was like it was buried in her skull. I saw the end. I saw us down there. You and me. Everyone. Over and over. Forever. Something stepped into view behind the trees. It wore Greg's skin, but the face was wrong. Too long. The eyes completely black. Its mouth was open in a slack smile, jaw loose, neck bones grinding like wet gravel. It twitched. Ash screamed and ran. Back at camp, the others heard the scream, sharp, echoing through the forest, like it was being bounced off glass. Ash! Danny shouted. They ran, but the woods stretched longer than they should have. The scream kept replaying, looping like a recording set on repeat. The same pitch, the same length, again and again. They finally found her, or what was left of her. Ash was hanging from a tree by her arms, 20 feet off the ground, eyes wide open, still alive. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out, just a wheeze and a faint clicking, like broken teeth chattering. Harper gagged. Her skin was peeled in places, thin strips spiraling down from her arms, her sides. Clean, surgical, no blood. The pieces hung like streamers, fluttering in the breeze. I can't, oh God, I can't. Danny stumbled back and threw up behind a tree. Owen stepped forward. She's still breathing. We have to cut her down, Harper cried. But Ash's body twitched, and the sound that came out of her mouth wasn't hers. It was Greg's voice again. You should have come with me. Then her head snapped backward, a sharp, unnatural jerk, and a line of thick, dark fluid poured from her mouth. Ash stopped moving. The forest went silent and they cut her down. They buried her beneath a cairn of stones, No one said anything. There was nothing to say. Owen stared at the pit all night. By the next morning, none of them had slept. Danny's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Harper was whispering to herself in short bursts, muttering fragments like, "Can't follow, don't listen. Plug the hole." The air was worse now. Sulfur and wet iron. The trees bent toward the pit, like they were leaning to hear. Owen stood over his pack, strapping the rope back on. Harper sat near the ashes of the fire, eyes red. "You're going in anyway, aren't you?" Owen nodded. "I have to see it," he said. "Not for knowledge, not even for answers, for closure. You don't come back from that place." He looked up at her. "Then I'll leave the rope." Owen left at dawn. No goodbyes, no speeches. Just the slow clatter of carabiners and rope as he packed. Eyes hollow, movements mechanical. He didn't even look at Harper or Danny as he walked to the edge of the pit. By then, it was wider, twice what it had been. The ground around it was puckered now, as if the forest were pulling away from the mouth. He tied the rope to the last remaining tree near the edge, tested the weight, then climbed over and disappeared. They didn't follow. The first hour passed in silence. Danny sat curled under a tarp, blade in her lap, hands covered in dried mud from the burial. Harper watched the pit. She didn't cry. She didn't sleep. Her eyes were cracked and red, like old glass. "I think it's getting closer," Danny said at last. Harper didn't respond. The air smelled worse now, like something dead in a drain. The trees leaned further. The birds had stopped calling. Then sound. The rope snapped taut. Harper stood. They rushed to the pit and looked down. Nothing. Then, slowly, the rope began to pull upward. Hand over hand, inch by inch, it emerged. Owen was coming back. Danny exhaled in relief. "Oh, thank God." Harper narrowed her eyes. "Wait." The rope kept rising. Then two hands emerged over the lip. They weren't Owen's. The fingers were too long, the skin too dark, the nails wrong. Then the arms came. The body that pulled itself out of the pit wore Owen's clothes, but not his body. It was stretched thin, wet. Veins pulsed beneath the translucent skin. Its face was smooth at first, blank like clay, until it opened its mouth and shaped itself. Owen's face bloomed from within the blankness, but it was upside down. Harper screamed. Danny stumbled backward. The creature twisted its neck upright with a sound like tearing paper, then smiled. "I saw the truth," it said in Owen's voice. "There's no bottom, just depths." Harper grabbed the hunting knife. Danny had frozen. The thing stepped forward. "I want to show you. I want you to see." "Get away from us!" Harper yelled, slashing wildly. The creature ignored the blade. It slid through its side like a knife through jelly. It didn't bleed. Instead, voices spilled out of the wound. Whispers, screams, laughter. "Let me in," it said, now in Ash's voice. "Come back down," said Greg's. Then, "You've already been there. You just don't remember." Danny snapped. She lunged, slamming the shovel they'd used to bury Ash into the creature's face. It staggered just enough. Harper grabbed Danny's hand. Run! They bolted through the trees. The forest was wrong now. The trees no longer had bark, just skin, smooth and pale, covered in faint, veiny patterns. Some pulsed like they had heartbeats. The howling returned, no longer distant. Now it followed them. The creature didn't chase in footsteps. It appeared, always just behind, just to the side, flickering between trees, like it couldn't decide what angle to come from. "Danny, left!" Harper shouted. They careened through the warped terrain. Then Danny tripped. Harper spun and grabbed her arm. Too late. The ground beneath Danny opened like a mouth, not a metaphor. A mouth, circular, full of teeth that weren't teeth, just jagged pieces of bone and metal and glass. They snapped shut as Danny was dragged halfway in. She screamed, flailing, blood spraying from her leg where something had already taken a chunk. Harper grabbed her hand. "Don't let go." Danny's eyes were wide. "It's inside my head. I can hear myself calling from down there." "You're not going in." Harper braced, pulled with everything she had. Danny looked her in the eyes. "I'm already there." And she let go. The mouth clamped shut. Gone. Just leaves and teeth and silence. Harper didn't stop running until she collapsed. By then, the pit was behind her, but only in theory. The sound was still there. The smell. The low vibration in her bones. She lay under a tree that wept black sap, knife in hand, until light returned. Eventually, she fell into an exhausted sleep. She awoke to breathing, not her own. The forest was breathing. And when she opened her eyes, the pit was in front of her. It had moved, or she had. It didn't matter. She stood on shaking legs, stared into the dark, and did something no one else had done. She screamed into it. "You want me. You want me. Take me." Nothing. No whisper, no howl, just wind. And then her own voice replied, "You're already inside." She blacked out. When she opened her eyes again, it was dusk. The sky burned red. The forest had stopped breathing. The ground was still. Cold. She stood up, bleeding from one leg, exhausted, empty. And she saw it. The trail. A real one. Familiar. Wooden marker, half buried under leaves. How had they not seen it before? She staggered toward it. 3 days later, Harper was found by a pair of hunters, half-starved, covered in scratches, clothes torn, one leg was broken. She didn't speak for the first day. By the second, she whispered, "The pit doesn't stay in one place." They asked her what happened to the others. She told them the truth. They didn't believe her. One of them, the younger hunter, went back, just to see. He never came out. Harper did not return to her life. She couldn't stand mirrors, couldn't sleep near anything circular, couldn't listen to running water. It sounded too much like breathing. She moved west, changed her name, took a job where she wouldn't have to talk. But sometimes, late at night, she'd feel something move beneath the floor, and she'd know. The pit was getting closer again, and it remembered her. Thank you for listening to this story. Your support means a lot and helps keep these tales coming. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to subscribe and follow for more dark and immersive stories just like this one. New horrors await. Don't miss what's coming next.